I love makeup that you can sleep in. Like, what inspired you to have that as your core brand?
I've always fell asleep in my makeup. I've been doing it most of my 20s. I remember like Sunday brunch with my girlfriends. I'd be like, oh my God, it's such a long night. I fell asleep in my makeup. And the look of horror I would see on my friend's face, I always hated that like judgment and that feeling. So I just wanted something where if I fell asleep in it, like I wouldn't have to worry.
I'd love to hear more about your journey before you even started Youthforia. What was your career? How did you get there? And how did you actually have the courage to quit and then build this?
Yeah, so before Youthforia, I feel like the first couple of years after college, I don't know, I just felt very lost. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But second job out of college was working at a tech startup and used to work in San Francisco. And it was very hustle and bustle back then. And I feel like it was just selling very complicated software to data centers. And if you asked me to do like that same job now versus like what I do now, I would think what I used to do was like just so much more complicated. It was just so abstract. But what I used to do a lot also was just travel around the world and tell people about this project that the startup company was doing. Something so completely different from Youthforia. And I remember during all of my free time, like I would just be looking up skincare ingredients just as a hobby. So fast forward to a couple of years later, I ended up getting married. My husband was based in Hong Kong. I was based in San Francisco. And when the pandemic hit, it was very much like it hit Asia first. And it was like, I'm not going to get on a plane to go back to San Francisco. And I just kind of had this moment where I was like, you know what, I need to start my own company. And I want it to be in makeup and skincare because that's what I'm more passionate about. And I don't know, something about the pandemic where I was on the other side of the world, no one knew exactly what I was doing, that gave me the courage to start Youthforia.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, one, seizing a moment. I think timing is everything when you're starting a business. Two, you met your husband like abroad across. Was that because of work or how did that even happen?
Yeah, it was during a work trip and I was like out on a Friday night and this was like back when Hong Kong was like really hustling and bustling. It was really fun. And I like just met him by chance. And like seriously, like the moment I met him, I was like, okay, this is going to be my husband.
Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't really figure out like love versus career at the time. I remember like what I was really influenced was around like career first, be an independent woman. And I was like, but I'm really in love with this guy that's like halfway across the world. And so I made like the career change mostly because I wanted to be married and you know, be with my husband.
Yeah, it's funny how that decision only propelled you into this like more successful version, more authentic to yourself. And like that's really the type of relationship you want to have anyways, is someone who can make you into a better person and actually get you closer to the thing that you're really excited about. So that's really awesome. How did you get started? Like what was the first step to building your brand? Obviously it takes a lot of money to launch product. So how did you bootstrap that?
Yeah, in the beginning I was so naive. I had no idea like what this entailed. I had no experience in beauty, but I was in Hong Kong, which is a great place to learn about supply chain. It was still the pandemic, so I wasn't actually interacting with that many people other than whoever I was chatting with online. And I feel like I made so many mistakes in the beginning. I thought it wouldn't cost me so much money to start the brand, but it ended up costing like basically all of my savings. I remember the first check I ever wrote for Youthforia, like it completely went down the drain just with making mistakes with suppliers and things like that. But I remember Googling, who manufactures or who can manufacture this and that, and it actually took a lot more trial and error to figure out like who we ended up working with and what that was going to entail. So it was on the one side it was finding suppliers for like product development, and then on the other side was just figuring out how to do branding. What do we want this brand to be about? And then me not really knowing how to do any of it.
I mean, I love makeup that you can sleep in. Like, what inspired you to have that as your core brand?
I've always fell asleep in my makeup. I've been doing it definitely like all of college, most of my 20s. And I remember because it was a pandemic, I wasn't going out or seeing people. And I was like, no, makeup is actually like I put it on because I go out to see people. Like, let's make a brand around that. And I am someone where I'm out with my friends. I will fall asleep in my makeup. Now I fall asleep in my makeup because I'm like working late or I'm just tired. But definitely when I was younger, it was like always about going out. And I never just could understand why we like accepted that makeup was bad for your skin, that if you fell asleep in it, it's like the worst thing in the world. I remember like Sunday brunch with my girlfriends, I'd be like, oh my God, it's such a long night. I fell asleep in my makeup. And the look of horror I would see on my friend's face, I always hated that like judgment and that feeling. So I just wanted something where if I fell asleep in it, like I wouldn't have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly told to us that's the worst thing you can do is like sleep in your makeup. We hear that like time and time again. Obviously, there's going to be naturally all this judgment towards it, but you're right. Like, why do we need to have? Why is the only makeup on the market the ones that like are so terrible for your skin? Doesn't really make any sense. So that is very cool. I know you're on Shark Tank, which is so awesome and wild. Was that the first big investor that you had in your company, and did that change your financial sentiment around your company, around your life? Like, did that make you more confident as a founder?
I remember Shark Tank, that time, it wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe a little bit over a year ago. I remember the day that I pitched on Shark Tank, I think we had 10 days of cash left. We were like, the entire year, we were always kind of strapping like between 7 to like maybe 14 days of cash. And it was always like, oh my God, are we going to like have to shut down? Like for that entire year, that's all I was thinking about. But at the time, I was already developing our foundation, which was like a passion project of mine. I was like, let me just get this business to the point where I could develop this foundation. And at the time, I was like, okay, we have 10 days of cash left. I probably will have to shut this business down. What if I just wear the foundation and that's the only life that this foundation gets, because that would make me feel so much better. Like, and you never know if your episode will air versus not. And I remember just putting it on and I'm like, no, like we have to make this work. This foundation looks so good on my skin. And it was just gave me this extra confidence booster that I was like, no, we're going to go like into Shark Tank and just, really pour my heart out and talk about the business and talk about like our products and, why, we deserved investment. And it was probably one of like, I don't know, it's like definitely like peak Delulu for me, but it was like one of my best experiences.
Delulu works. Like, I really truly believe the way people perceive you is the way you perceive yourself. So you walk into that room super confident makes all the difference. I watched your episode on Shark Tank and I was like, instantly you started talking. I was like, okay, obsessed. Like, I don't know anything about business as much as these investors, but like I would fully invest, because when you just like first few sentences you're saying, it's like, yeah, she's gonna make this business successful. She's gonna take it over the line. You don't even need to know about makeup in the moment. They can just trust you, and like makes so much sense like why you got that investment. So, and I know you like actually like hung out with Mark Cuban and actually put the makeup on him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he's great. Like as an investor, as a partner, he's great. He always has like great advice and like love just his take on business. I feel like he's been so successful in business, like in all these different areas, that like his advice, it just translates really well, even though completely different industry.
Yeah, that's actually very surprising, but it makes sense. Like business is business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how has paying yourself changed since you started the business versus now?
So I think the first, how many years was it? Like 3 years I didn't pay myself, and I was all like just kind of using up all of my savings. We were also like, I was also like completely starting to run out of money. And I remember that year I had like the worst stomach problems. I couldn't digest food because I was so stressed about money. And that was the biggest change. Like as soon as I could just pay myself a small salary, like literally just not like using up my savings, I could like digest food and eat again. And that was like the best feeling.
That's so crazy how stress can actually be so toxic for your body, and you actually physically hold that stress.
Yeah, it's definitely like a physical, or at least for me, it was a physical manifestation. And I look back on that year, the first year and year and a half of Youthforia, like I watch those videos of myself on TikTok and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so naive and I'm so green, and I like see all this like hope in my eyes, and I really love that. But I also remember, man, I couldn't digest, like physical health was terrible, financial health was terrible. The stress, it was like the balance of like, I'm so excited, I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, but like the reality of like everything else was also kind of getting to me. So it's still like, I don't know, it's like a love-hate like remembrance of that time, but yeah, it was a good time.
But I mean, it had to happen that way, because you being naive and being so excited about your product is probably what got other people excited about your product and really kickstarted the momentum to get to where it is today. So maybe the digestion issues, like maybe were not necessary, but like you I truly believe that being ignorant at certain moments before you really get into the business is actually very critical. As a founder myself right now, who's like really early in the journey, I think before I quit my job, had I known how difficult it was right now, like what I know about business now, like I don't know if I'd have had the courage to quit it. But I'm so grateful I did, and where I've come from is so far, and I'm so excited about the future. It's so much more authentic to who I am. But like I almost needed to not know how bad it was to do the actual job of getting to this point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I keep thinking, like, everything that I know now, if you, like, had told me 3-4 years ago, I would not have gone into makeup. And, like, all these great products wouldn't have been created. Like, I needed that naivety to not know how difficult things were and, deal with it later.
Yeah, totally. So what is your role as a founder? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? How do you share those responsibilities with your team?
I think it's my day-to-day has looked different depending on what year it's been. I used to do everything, and I was like just trying to stay alive and afloat. But now I think the days are a little bit more chaotic. There's still a ton of meetings that I do. There's still like a lot of content that I create. So it's depending on the day. Sometimes it's a finance day. Sometimes it's a creative day. It's a product day. I try to batch it that way. And I also try to like leave time for me to be creative, that where I have no meetings, I don't have to talk to anyone. It's definitely during different working hours. And then other hours where I'm just like, okay, what's the status update? What's the meeting that I need to address? And this year it's been exciting and different because we have all these like new things that are happening for us, and I'm like, I need to learn how to do this one thing. So that's been where it's been really fun.
That's awesome. Do you still create all the content today that goes out for Youthforia?
I mean, I used to create all the TikTok content, so we have some of that supplemented, but I still run a majority of it. Instagram, we've always kind of had that supplemented with my content and other content.
Yeah, I can't believe you've been showing up on TikTok for years, every single day, regardless of where the business is, what's on your plate. Like, that's truly amazing. Do you think you'll ever fully give 100% of the TikTok away to someone else to do on a day-to-day basis?
I think the only time where I'd consider like completely being offline is like when I'm giving birth to my son and I like physically can't show up. I like that I've been able to share the journey, and I record every single day. And there's so many videos where I'll like record during that day because I knew that we found out about really exciting news, and I can't share it, but like I just liked seeing how I showed up that day, like my facial expressions. I recorded a video like the day that I found out we would get into Ulta. Like that video has no views, but I just wanted to record those moments, kind of like a video diary for me to look back on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And are there videos still in your drafts that you're going to one day put out?
Oh my God, I have, I think 1,000 videos in my drafts. I'm probably going to run out of room. Like I'm probably going to have to delete some of these.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Well, you just upgrade your iPhone. Don't delete it. Like one day they're going to be like precious memories, and you're going to want to put them out, and then the world's going to be really excited to see them. Also, congrats on your baby.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. When are you due?
I'm due at the end of May.
Oh my goodness, that's very soon. That's amazing. Okay, cool. Let's talk into TikTok specifically. TikTok Shop is all the rage right now. How has that helped or not helped your business? How has that changed your business? I'm curious because I'm sure you use it for selling your products.
We use it a little bit. I mean, I'm not super deep heavy into it, not just yet. So I think it's still too early to tell. I do know that like blush has done really well on TikTok Shop. I think that product just has always lent itself to virality. I almost wish that TikTok Shop launched like 2 years earlier just to see like what that full potential for TikTok could be. But I think it's, a different type of content for TikTok Shop. It's still something where like it's early days, and I'm like kind of curious to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and you're also the face of your company. Like do you feel pressure from that? Like how are you able to keep your personal life and your company life separate, or is it inevitable that they mix? I feel like TikTok is obviously like a huge channel for you to grow your company, grow your brand.
Yeah, I feel like I accidentally became the face of Youthforia. It was not ever the intention. I just had like no one else running TikTok, and I was like, well, I can talk about our products. And now I feel like it's fun being able to share that journey. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of going through right now, I've never seen really any other founder talk about, like the stage that we're at and like what it's like to run a business. So I think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think it's also really difficult because there's so many days where I don't know that I want to record. I don't know if that I want to be in front of the camera. And sometimes that context switching between, just making content versus the other things that I have to do to keep the business afloat can be really difficult.
Oh my God, I really empathize with context switching. I really struggle with that. Like sometimes I have to be like, okay, today, if I film a few TikToks and do nothing else today because I literally can't context switch back to work, I'm going to give myself grace. Begin tomorrow, I'm just going to not look at TikTok and I'm going to plow through all the work. I'm doing 2 days of work in one. Yeah. And sometimes you just like have to do that to show up online.
Yeah, I do a lot of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen so many brands try to tackle TikTok, and consistently the ones where the founders are too shy to be in front of the camera, like they don't resonate. I don't know what it is, but it's very difficult to get behind something unless you really hear the story of like, why does this person actually want to create this product and how is this product actually different? Like you need to hear that from the founder.
I also find that like when I watch brand TikToks where you really see the founder talk about their product, you see that passion and it comes across so differently than like if someone else was talking about the product.
Passion is everything and you can't fake that. Like, especially when there's a camera on your face, like unless you're like literally world star actress, like you can't fake that. Like it has to be real. And then people can tell, and then the best person who's gonna be the most passionate is gonna be the founder, and then that's always gonna work the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you launched your foundation last year, and I know that you had like a lot of commentary on the shades and what it was. I would love to hear that whole story from your perspective, how it affected you, what's coming for Youthforia in the future, and like what the impact did like TikTok have on the launch.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to like if I had grown up in the beauty industry, I don't know that I would start a makeup brand. I think there's so many things that make it really difficult for, let's say you're not a celebrity, you're just a person, you don't have a ton of resources. It makes it really difficult to succeed. And that's what I learned from the launch of the foundation. I don't want to discourage anyone and say like, hey, if you have a passion to create a foundation line, like you should go after it. But like, I almost want to forewarn people that it comes with a lot of difficulties. I think it's very different if you are a celebrity and you have a huge following and you can get placement in store. That's a very, very completely different story. But if you're just someone with a unique perspective on, hey, I think I want to introduce something new in the complexion range, it's extremely difficult for a number of reasons. First one is like the retailers, like, are they going to give you space in store? When we launched our foundation, we got the opportunity to be in 53 stores, which is not a lot. It's something I'm super grateful for, but like out of 1,300 stores, like that's a very small, like that's like not really, it's not like, I wouldn't consider it like a full launch. It's kind of like, let's test the waters and see if we even launch this in the future. Like that's the way that you kind of perceive it. Secondly, there's a lot of other things to consider, which is minimum order quantities. When you make a product by shade, there is a set amount of units that you have to order by shade. And kind of given like, okay, are people going to even be able to go out in store? Like, should we do a full launch now, or should we wait and get feedback from the customers? That's another thing that's kind of in consideration. And then thirdly, like I think, there's a lot of foundation ranges that are on the market. A lot of brands actually do edit their shades later. They usually add more, or they take away some and like edit. And that's actually usually a pretty normal process, I would say. So I think I kind of naively kind of went in thinking, okay, like I launched one shade of blush and then I added 3 more. Like I would get that grace so that people would understand that we were a small business, and that's kind of that path. But I think like once you launch complexion, people kind of have this assumption that you're a big brand and you're dealing with the same resources and dollars that a mega celebrity would have, which is not always the case. So I think it's, as a small business owner, like balancing out, yes, I want to be as inclusive as possible. I want to do exactly what's right for our customers, but also looking at the reality of like, am I going to launch the right things at the right time? I think there's a lot of kind of debate that kind of goes in your head.
Mm-hmm. And you also want to be like a good founder, a good businesswoman. Like you don't want to just burn all the cash of your company and then all of a sudden, like then you are not going to be able to provide for your employees and actually scale the business. So it's really important to like make these decisions and really think about costs as like not just like brand and all these like nice to think about things. I'm curious if you would go back in time and would you do anything different, or how would you balance between, okay, I don't want to blow all this money to do the full launch when I really need in my iteration and experimentation phase. Is there like a a marketing tactic you would do, or like maybe a better story or messaging you would have around it?
Yeah, maybe I probably would have been a little bit more upfront about the process. I think, it's easy to say, hey, let's just launch like 100 shades of foundation, but the cost of actually doing that, like, I don't have that much cash in the bank, like by like an order of magnitude. I think that's what's really difficult. When you're a small brand, you don't have like a huge financial backing, you're not a celebrity, and you really want to bring something that's completely new to the market. Like, it's really hard in complexion. I don't know what I would do differently. I mean, I've learned a lot. We've actually sped up our product development process, as in response to this. And it was always actually something that was like in the works. Like on our launch day, I was, already talking to pressing. We're launching more shades. Like I said that on day one of the launch. But I think, I don't know. I don't know like what I would do differently. I definitely have learned a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes like learning is the most important piece. Like I have found that oftentimes I've done things that I'm like looking back in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, so obvious I should have done this way or shouldn't have done that. But as time passes, I actually realize I'm actually really glad I did it. I'm glad I looked dumb. I'm glad I did something stupid. I'm glad I made the wrong decision because it actually led me to a better path and made me a better person. It actually taught me something that was a very valuable lesson that I couldn't learn otherwise. And I know that as a founder, like failure, making mistakes, or even not making mistakes, even communicating something in a way that you didn't want to communicate, like all of that is like very critical to the process, and it actually just advances you forward. It helps you grow closer to your dreams. But I find that the biggest part about this is like mental health. Like when your business is not going where it needs to go, or there are hard points, it's really hard. It feels like your whole world boils down to that one moment, and that the whole company is your identity. But that's not true. Like you are so much more than your company, and it's extremely difficult when you're working on something every waking, breathing minute day, and you're thinking about it every. How can you separate that from yourself? So wondering if you have like any experiences or stories or how you work through that. I also similarly am the face of my company, and so I do really feel that pressure every day of like everyone's watching me and every step that I take, and it's very emotionally draining on a day-to-day basis. So any tips you have?
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's hard during the hard times, right? Like being the face, and then also like being the leader of the company during hard times, when sometimes you just need space and grace to just think and process, and sometimes you're not afforded that space and time, and you really have to lead. I think that's where it's really difficult. I think I totally resonate with what you said, which is like sometimes you tie your identity so much into your company. And I think it's kind of like the founder's journey of like, what was something that was missing that I wish I had? And you put all of that and all that creativity into a company and a brand. So that's where it can be really difficult to separate. I don't think I'm good at that. But I feel like now I'm always just telling myself, like, if there's a tough time, I'm like, I'm resilient. Like I can get through this. I almost have to like convince myself, you are resilient, and like you will get through this, and this will pass. But even like during the moments, I'm like, I'm always like, when will it be like 3 months from now when I'm like kind of over it? But I try to always remind myself, you are resilient. You can get through it, even when I'm like, I don't want to get through any of this.
Yeah. Oh my God, I couldn't relate more. Do you think that having your company be your full identity is a bad thing?
It's probably not great for mental health, but I feel like I was able to channel so much creativity into the brand that, like, when it's great, I think it's a great thing. When it's hard, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know that this is like the best balance. Yeah. But I love what I like created from a branding perspective, because it was so different, and I've always felt different. I've always felt, when I was younger, I always felt like unseen, and I never felt like anything spoke to me. So being able to like express that in a something physical was really cool.
Yeah. No, I sometimes struggle with this as well, because I feel like the biggest reason why my company is as big as it is because I put my heart into it, and my heart is my identity. Like I'm speaking from this like deep part of myself that makes me me. And had I separated my identity from my company, that person wouldn't have spoken, and then all these people wouldn't have resonated, and it just wouldn't be where it is today.
It wouldn't be as successful.
Yeah. So maybe the right answer is it should be separate, but I almost feel like the difference between exceptional companies and non-exceptional companies are the ones whose founders are willing to sacrifice and have that compromise every day. That's like, this company really, it's me. And that's also like very beautiful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to hear like future Youthforia plans. Where is the brand headed? Tell us if there are new products coming out.
I guess the one that I'm really open about is like we are extending our shades for a foundation. This is something that I was working very, very hard, working crazy Asia hours, and working just really hard to get it done. We're still kind of in the middle of like the launch phase. Have another product that I feel like it's gonna launch very close to when I give birth, which will be really exciting. And then
founder things, pregnant, baby born, product born at the same time.
I know. But yeah, I think I'm working on a lot of products going into the rest of this year and next year. But when it all slates in, like, I have no idea. I try to now kind of keep some of the product development projects open, so it gives me a lot more freedom and flexibility to make things perfect.
I'm so excited for all the stuff that's coming out. Are you excited about having your baby?
I'm excited. I'm like nervous, scared, excited, like all of the feelings.
How do you think work's going to change?
I think so. One thing that was really interesting that kind of surprised me about pregnancy is that like there's something about, I feel like maybe it's the hormones or maybe it's just like this like, oh shoot, like I need to like get everything in order feeling, where it just made me feel really focused of like what is everything I need to do so I can take some time off and really enjoy that moment. I think it sped a ton of projects for me, which I'm like kind of shocked that I thought I would be so tired that I would slow down. I actually like sped things up. But I have no idea. I've never been a mom before. I think I'm just going to be open to kind of adding to the chaos that already is my life with Youthforia and just adding, a baby into it. But yeah, I'm kind of going to give myself some grace to, experience that learning curve of being a new mom, but also, keep things in order for the business.
I mean, you've come so far. Your business is so poised for success. And so I think you deserve that break and you deserve that time with your baby for sure. And I feel my thing is like you're actually going to be even a better founder, and like your baby's going to teach you so many things. And I'm so excited to see BTS on TikTok of like you and your baby. And like I just feel like your baby's going to be so cute. I'm very excited. Cool. Well, I want to dive into more of like this mindset around being a founder. Oftentimes when you're starting out, you're like, I just want to get like $1 million in revenue. Or I just want this product to launch and then everything will go good. And then once that happens, you're like, okay, next goal. And you're always chasing this next goal. How can I make the business bigger and bigger and bigger? What for you is going to the point where you're like, okay, Youthforia has reached the point that I wanted to take it? Is that now? Is that another goal that you're moving towards?
Yeah, for me, it's actually very product-based. So like when I first started Youthforia, like back in 2020, I was like, how do I get to a point where I can launch a foundation? Because I understood that it was very complicated. It required resources. There's all these other products that I'm working on that I'm like, okay, how do I get to the point where I can launch this product? I think I'll be very happy when I kind of complete, like, I don't know, I have like this list of everything I want to create. I think I'll be really happy once I kind of create that, like complete that list.
Yeah. Okay, I'm dying to know what this list, but this seems under the table. We have to wait for it to come out.
You kind of have to wait a couple of years.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's get into physical wellness, specifically skincare, because you're this queen of skincare. I know you've done several trips to Asia where you've learned a lot of the stuff that you've actually brought into your products. What was the most surprising thing you learned on one of your first few trips there?
So when I still lived in Asia, I think I lived in Hong Kong, and one of the more surprising things I learned was just how people use makeup. It was a huge inspiration for the brand. Like, it's such a skincare market, and people are so well-versed in skincare. Like, if you meet someone and they're like, I'm not into skincare, they have a 24-step routine. Like it's very, like, you see a lot of that. And so they kind of translate that into makeup. There's this knowledge of, if your skin is feeling this way, this should be your makeup routine. So your makeup lasts longer, but also like you can heal your skin and then you can kind of get it back into balance. So that was the biggest surprise for me. The second big surprise for me is they're very well versed in color theory. So I was just in Korea a couple months ago, and I don't know if you've seen on TikTok, but like the color analysis, like that's a really common trend. So basically you go to like a color consultant, they drape colors of fabric on you and they say like you're a warm tone or cool tone, but then you're also like, what season you are, like winter, spring, summer, fall. And these are the colors you should wear. This is how much contrast you should wear for your clothes, but also your makeup. So there's all these services that are like kind of tailored to you. They're very affordable. I think some makeup stores used to just do it for free or like $10, like really, really affordable. And so it's such a common thing that it's like this huge place where like you can buy like so many different products. It's very, very affordable, but also getting all that customization that's really hard to learn on yourself by yourself is also very accessible, where it just people are very well versed in color because they do these services. That's something that was really, really fun for me. And I think, as a person, like a woman of color, when I was younger, it was so hard to buy foundations. Even now, if I go to like...
It's still really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I go into like a Sephora and Ulta or even a department store, they'll likely say, okay, you're Asian, you're probably going to be a warm tone. And I go to Asia and they're like, you're actually a cool tone, but here's the nuances that even, if you have yellow in your skin, this is why you're a cool tone. It was so interesting where they can get really nuanced into it. And I thought that was like, I don't know, like a game changer for me.
I feel like those details really what makes your foundation look so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Like exactly knowing like how to put all the colors together. That was also really fun. I was so surprised that just in general, people are pretty well versed in color.
When you said like depending upon what your skin is at, you should put on different makeup or you should treat it differently. Do you have any like tips or thoughts on like how we should be doing that? Because sometimes my face is really flaky and dry and my makeup looks patchy, and other times my makeup is like looking glowing because I put on a bunch of creams that actually soaked in because my face wasn't flaky, and then I just feel like I'm not in control of like the output of how it ends up looking because I don't have a good handle on like what my face is feeling that day.
Yeah, so if it's dry or flaky, depends on what's causing it. If it's like weather change, like let's say you've been outside, it's cold, or it's like the heater or the AC, usually I like to tackle it from skincare, so like a sheet mask. I like to use, instead of like a thick cream, like a gel cream, because it actually usually helps your skin hold on to moisture better. I would avoid makeup that has like something that like a 24-hour wear claim or like a 16-hour wear claim. Usually those ingredients are very drying. I would avoid powders as well because that's usually also really drying. I would try to just basically hydrate the skin. Use like a kind of like a thinner foundation, like less coverage. And then within a day or two, it should get back to normal. You can go back to your normal routine.
How does Youthforia products help with that process?
So I really like our primer. I use it every single day. I don't know if you're familiar with like slugging, like kind of like sealing everything in.
Like with like Aquaphor or something?
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't think that's a great look for daytime because
No.
It's kind of like very like a lot. So I use this for daytime slugging. It's very thin. It just seals in all your skincare, so like you're not like losing any of that moisture. And then I really like this setting spray. So if you have dry patches, what I like to do is spray it on a sponge and then use that to apply foundation. This basically will like flatten that patchiness.
Got it. So I would put the setting spray on the foundation before I even use it.
On a
sponge.
on
the sponge.
And then pat it in.
That's a good tip.
And then you can always like remist your skin with the setting spray.
Yeah, what we were talking about earlier, where there's this whole misconception around sleeping in your makeup. Well, I don't know what's misconception, but just from time to time again, everyone's like, consensus, sleeping in makeup is bad, and people will judge you for that. So I'm very curious on your whole notion behind makeup you can sleep in. Do you recommend actually sleeping in it?
I think it depends. Like if you're out and it's a very polluted day, or you're out and you're like sweating or someone has sweated on you, that's probably when I wouldn't sleep in my makeup. Like it's very like environmental dependent. But if like, let's say I am getting ready for a dinner, or like let's say it's like a 12 a.m. Zoom, I don't know why, and I just need to put makeup on. If I don't think the air is dirty, I have no problem going to sleep in my makeup. But if it's kind of like, I don't know, you're going out to somewhere really, really dirty and the air is really dirty, that's where I'll be like, be careful about that.
And how does this foundation differ from other foundation in terms of quality of the foundation and also the willingness to sleep in it without it severely damaging your skin?
Yeah, so like it's interesting because it's kind of like this mix between skincare and makeup. And before, like the way that I really saw like the foundations just on the market is I saw like almost like these really skincare based foundations where it's like almost like a skincare formula with like a drop of pigment, and it had no performance. You could tell that it was like the color wasn't holding on. It like you don't get any coverage,
or it will like change your color. Like I've had like those tinted sunscreens, and then it'll make me look really pale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they'll have like 3 shades for that, and then it's just obviously not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Or like sometimes I see like heavy duty makeup, which like a drop of hyaluronic acid, but you look at the ingredients, it's like all these other ingredients that are like really drying for your skin, and you don't get that skincare benefits. Where what I did with this one was like, how do I combine something that's really like this in between skincare and makeup? So all the skincare actives, it was like thinking about how can I make my foundation like last longer? How can I make our skin better? But how do I also get all the performance? So this formula, I went like no budget on like the actual formulation, because I was like, is this even possible? I'm like dreaming of this texture, this formula. I wanted something that you can blend with your fingers. It just sinks into your skin like quicksand. That's like super easy to use. I remember falling in love with like $300 foundations. I'm like, I love the look of this. How do I get this? I want to launch something like this for like something that I could afford. And so that's like one of the biggest difference. Like when you feel it, it's really, really different from anything else. And the price point has this beautiful glass skin finish. It's super easy to use. And then it's also great for your skin. You can sleep in it.
That's amazing. So is there truly a big difference between like affordable and luxury makeup? Because for a long time, I felt like paying the extra $100 for something wasn't going to get me a better product.
I think like when I look at it, like when you get into like $250, which is like also very like unaffordable because it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
You notice a huge texture difference. Like that is, especially now that I'm getting a little bit older, like I'm getting like kind of like finer lines around my eyes. That's where things cannot look cakey. Like the texture just looks really, really different. But that's where I see like the biggest break.
Right. So under around $250, probably not going to be a huge difference.
There might be like 1 or 2 brands where like they're similar price points. So I'll be like yes on that one, no on that one. But like definitely at that $250 mark, like you see a noticeable difference.
That makes sense. Is there any like bad advice on skincare you see on social media often that you would warn us against?
Probably a lot. I think it's just really with skincare, just listen to your skin. Everyone's skin is so different, especially when you're like in a different environment. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Like just patch test everything just in case, it doesn't agree with your skin, and listen to your own skin.
Yeah. What's your go-to skincare routine?
Oh, it depends. I think I'd switch it up. I'm working on a few products right now, so I feel like if you ask any like beauty vendor what's your routine, it's like, I don't know, lab sample 1, lab sample 2, lab sample 3. But I love our face wash. Like I almost didn't launch our face wash, but I wanted something that could remove makeup really easily and biggest difference to my skin. So like that's one of my favorite products still.
I'm actually looking for a new face wash right now because I use Cetaphil, which is like a very generic over-the-counter brand, and it's not doing it for me. So I'm definitely buying this like tonight and I'm going to try it. Okay. Oh my God, you're the best. Cool. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self some advice, what would you tell her?
I would tell her like to don't focus so much on fitting in, just focus on being yourself and being really sure of who you are. Like no one can take that away from you. I feel like the younger version of myself was so insecure, always wanted to fit in, always felt like weird in crowds or just around people because I didn't feel like myself. And I would just tell her, who cares? Just be yourself.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. I learned so much from like being a founder to like actually how to upgrade my skincare routine. And I'm super excited to get the Youthforia products.
Well, thank you so much for having me.